Hi there, welcome to C Programming tutorial. Today we will be covering the topic of constants and variables. It's a very important topic, it's very basic, but it's very important. All the programming languages have to have them. And before we start, I would like to remind you again that on the screen you can see the link to the entire playlist of all the tutorials in this series that cover the C programming language in detail. And if you haven't watched the videos before this one, I would highly recommend that you should do that. So just click on the screen on this link if you're just watching the videos at random. I would suggest that you watch them in sequence. Anyway, so again, as I said, today we will be covering the variables and constants in C. So here we have our compiler slash editor. And in one of the previous videos I taught you how to basically install this compiler. If you haven't watched that video, I think it's the very first one, number 0 actually. I would highly recommend that you watch that one. Anyway, so over here, so the question is, what are constants? So constants are basically the symbols that represent some value, a fixed value that cannot change. That's why they're called constants. Like for example, 1. 1 basically is a number. It has a certain value and it can't be changed. Just like 2, 3, or 2564, or 25.6. That's also a number and it's also a constant. It just cannot be changed. Constants don't have to be numbers. They can be anything else. For example, the letter A. The letter A is a constant. It's again, it has certain value. It's a symbol. It has certain value and it cannot be changed. Whenever I saw the letter A, I mean something. I understand something. Similarly, the word, for example, the word Anne. The name of a person, Anne. It's a constant. Sam. It's a constant. It's a set of letters making a word or a name in this case, and this stays the same. It's a constant. These are called constants. So I hope now you understand what constant means. The other thing is that on the other hand, it basically there's something called variables. Variables are basically essentially the symbols that we assign a value or a constant to. For example, and the way we represent variables is like x, for example. X is a variable. If I assume that it's a variable, then I can assign it a value like 2, for example, a constant. A 2. So x equal to 2. That the value of x becomes 2. Later on, I can say x is equal to 3. So I can change the value of this symbol. That's why it's called a variable. It can vary. That's why it's called variable. I can also assign a value of a, because a is also a constant. So I can assign that value to x also. But see, if you look at it very closely, you can see that there is a problem here. How do I differentiate between a variable x and the constant a? So in order to differentiate between them, we usually use quotes or apostrophes, single quotes. This represents the constant. This says that I'm talking about the constant a, and I'm not talking about the variable a. There could be a variable a that could get a value of 2. So this represents a constant, something that's not going to change. This represents a variable. Its value has become this constant. So if you have already studied like algebra or something, you already know what I'm talking about, except that at least you know already that you have a variable and it can have a value assigned to it. This may be a little new to you if you haven't done any programming language, but it's just a generalization of this concept. A constant can be assigned to a variable. a is a constant, we assign it to this variable. To avoid the confusion, we put a under quotes so that we can basically, so that we can say that this, we are talking about this a constant a. And here we are talking about a is a variable because it doesn't have quotes, and we are basically assigning this value to a. So very simple actually. How do you define variables in C? This is what you do. If you have to define a variable that will have, that that it's going to hold integers like numbers, right? Numbers which don't have any decimal point, we don't have any fraction, then you need to do is to define it as int. So if you say int x, what it does is it basically, in somewhere in the computer memory, what it does is it allocates enough space to hold numbers. And in our previous lecture where we learned binary number system, what it does is it basically allocates certain number of bits. And depending upon the machines, most of the time, int basically results in a 32-bit allocation. And in our last lecture we said the 32-bit means the double word. Anyway, we don't have to worry about this. The thing is that if you want to store numbers, just declare that variable as int, and then you can say int x equal to 2. Now with C programming, this is important that every time when you write something, when you write a statement, you have to close it with the semicolon. So int x semicolon. This says that okay, x is a variable that will hold numbers, and then you say x equal to 2, so the value of x becomes 2. You cannot say x equal to a. Why? Because you declared x to be a number. This will be an error. The compiler is going to say this is not going to work out. So if you really want to declare x, if you really want to declare a variable that can hold the value of a, what you have to do is to declare it as character C, for example. Then we can say C is equal to a. So int basically allows you to declare a number, a numeric variable, a variable that can hold numbers, and character basically char or char, some people would say, would allow you to basically declare a variable that will hold characters, constants, like this one. How to hold words, constants? That's gonna be, these are called strings variables, and it's gonna be, we will cover it in later in the later course. We will be studying arrays and strings together, but for now you just work with the characters and numbers. Well, the time is up for this particular lecture. We will continue with it. Please don't forget to watch the next video, and try to look up the playlist and see if you can follow all